So, on the podcast this week, as you know, we love to give you some resources, some tips, some advice as well. But I think one of the most powerful things we can offer you is the stories of other artists. So you can hear about the things that have worked for them, the things that haven't worked. And fortunately, we've got some great friends and colleagues who are hugely talented, who are also brave enough to tell us all of it, the good, the bad, and the ugly of being an independent artist. And our guest this week is actually truly one of the most inspiring people I know. I manage him, but he's also a friend, a very good friend, hugely talented, and has got way too many talents. It hardly seems fair. He's a spoken word artist, he's a rapper, he's a producer, he does everything creative. Can you dance, Josh?
Incredibly well.
Oh no, he can dance as well. He can cook.
I got.
I've never seen him dance, so that one might be out. But apart from that, he's pretty good at everything else. And he's one of my favourite storytellers. We have great conversations, great debates, just great conversing, basically. So high hopes for this one. No pressure, Josh. But welcome to the podcast, Joshua Luke Smith.
Oh, thank you for having me. What a treat. I love this
so
podcast.
Great. This is like been something we've been wanting to do for ages, so it's just great to like get you in one place and to actually have a chat. So thanks.
No, it's awesome. I genuinely love this podcast, and I know so many people in my community who love it and love everything that you do on Instagram and across socials, and you're paving a way for independent artists to not feel alone, which I'm very grateful for. So honored.
Thanks.
Awesome.
I mean, really, we just kind of want to find out more about you and your creative process, and just to share as an independent artist. Now, obviously, B and I know quite a bit of your story, but I thought it'd be really good to just go back to the beginning, because I know you always talk about your childhood influences as an artist, and particularly how you started making music was really a key point in your life. So just tell us a little bit about your upbringing and how music came into that.
Yeah, for sure. I've actually been thinking about it quite a bit in lockdown, of just the whole kind of journey into why I am so in love with music and making music as I am, and was thinking about the early years. I was in Pakistan. My family were missionaries in Pakistan. And so I grew up in this really rural area in the north of Pakistan, where it was genuinely hours and hours worth of driving to any kind of town or city. So weekly, we would all climb into we called it the biscuit tin. And it was like this old Suzuki van. And we'd all climb into this van and would drive for hours. I mean, 9 hours was the nearest city. And we'd get in the car and my dad would put the tapes on, and we would just sit in the car and listen all the way through an album. I mean, you can just imagine how many albums. Next album. And thankfully, my dad has great music taste. Like when I think back retrospectively, so Tracy Chapman, Cat Stevens, Paul Simon, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, Genesis, like great songwriters, and I grew up just sat listening to songwriters and storytellers for hours. And so I think from a young age, I just thought I want to tell stories. I really want to tell stories, because they honestly, it sounds cliche, but they take you from one place to another. And for my family, like my parents were involved in difficult work. Like we lived in an area that was impoverished, and they were working with people in the kind of the crucible of human suffering. Like it was very difficult. My mom was suffering with depression most of our time there, which she talks about, now. And music for me was an oasis. Music was like an escape as well as a comfort. And I've grown up with this sense of the arts and justice, making music and doing things that help people's actual practical lives almost entwined together. And that has been in my heart for as long as I can remember. So when I was probably 12 years old, I found Eminem. My sister bought Stan. Remember that track?
Yeah.
It was like Christmas #1 at some point, or it was huge around Christmas, because I got given a shower radio, and I remember like I wasn't allowed to listen to it, but I would put on in the shower and like play Eminem, and then my sister bought the cassette, and so my mom banned the cassette, but she left it on the side of the kitchen to like take back to HMV. So I took it and stuck it in the tape deck and just devoured it. And then my sister bought me the Fugees, the Score record. And honestly, my teenage, that was it. That was the defining like attribute of my teenage years, was hip hop. I found the same thing in hip hop that I did in those folk artists and those storytellers. It was just people that were sharing their life, and telling stories about other people. I've always loved that. And yeah, like it's just always been such a huge part of my life.
And what about when you started to make music yourself?
Yeah, I think for me it probably started as a process of kind of emulating what I was hearing. I started writing poems. I'm laughing because Karen and I talked about this yesterday. I wrote my first poem when I was 9, and Laura, I don't know if you remember the conversation that we had. It was having lunch with Kat. Do you remember about my first poem?
About the goat.
About a goat, yeah. So
yeah,
I
weren't you?
Bianca was there. Yeah, Bianca was there. Yeah, we were actually having, I think we were having lunch together. Oh, no.
Refresh me, guys. Refresh me.
Well, my first poem I was 9 years old, and the poem I'll recite it to you. This is exclusive. I don't know if I've ever performed this live on air before, but this is how the poem goes. 9 years old. I had a friend, a very good friend, who was loyal to me for years on end. But one terrible night, he proved my thoughts wrong. He had left. Yes, he had gone. And then pause, last line. Oh, why did you leave me, loyal friend? Right? So the last line is like rich with satire and sarcasm. It's paradoxical. Why did you leave me, loyal friend? And honestly, like my mom's got it up in the house. My grandma's got it in the house, like printed out Josh's first poem. But none of us were like, why did I write that poem? And then I remembered, I was telling this story. I was there, it was you guys. That's so crazy. I was literally telling Kara this story yesterday. I was talking about this fact that in Pakistan I had a pet goat, because you couldn't have pet dogs because they were like feral. So I had a pet goat. And one year when we came back to England for a break, I gave the goat to our neighbors to look after. Little did I know that I gave them the goat over the festival of Eid. So when I came back and I scurried around the garden looking for the goat, went to the little hatch where he lived and, tried to find my goat, but I couldn't find him. Turned out they had received the goat as a gift for Eid. So I'd eaten him. I told you guys that story. Kat was there. I think it was Kat went, bruv, that was your goat talking to you in your subconscious. You were the loyal friend that left. And I lost it. I remember I like stood up in the restaurant like some Freudian psychology of like, oh my goodness. It was
like some inner healing was happening there.
Yeah, like it was this deep psychological breakthrough in my life. So yeah, I should start like leading poetry retreats and like you can like get your subconscious
man
your poems
process through art.
Yeah,
all that. That's amazing. So that was your first piece.
That was my first poem.
That you started deep then.
I started
way in.
I know I started deep, and until recently I didn't know why. But it turns out there was some trauma that had to get released. And it's funny though.
Interestingly, that you started, you didn't really realize that potentially, even though we're joking, you might have been processing. But
yeah, but
that's how your art seems to have continued.
Yeah, and as weird as it is talking about it, I'm like, the more I talk about it, the more I'm convinced of like, yeah, maybe. Yeah, like maybe that's what happened. Because I've been asked like a few times, like why you write about quite intense things, and I do. And I think poetry and music is this kind of part of my expression that does deal with the darkness in my life. Like to be honest, I really do process a lot through what I write. And again, like listening to hip hop and listening to folk music, that's where those are my teachers. You know what I mean? Tracy Chapman. I remember hearing what's the song called? Through the Walls. Last night I heard the screaming. I remember hearing that probably 8 years old and just like haunted. She just tells a story about domestic abuse. No use in calling the police, you know, because what will they do when they get here? And it was like 8 years old. Like, there's no happy ending. It's just a story about the reality of human experience. And I think that moved me at such a young age that I've just sort of lived in that world, you know, like I want to talk about the gaps. I want to talk about the stuff that really gets to the heart of matter, you know?
Yeah. And what's the difference between like poetry and rap for you?
To be honest, there isn't a big difference. Like, I think in terms of the genres, we could break it down, but for me, it does the same thing in my soul. Like, what I'm looking really for two main things. I'm looking for a story of sorts. Like, tell me a story. I'm not talking about like Once Upon a Time. Just take me somewhere. And then also like do something majestic with words, you know, like we have got this, you know, we've got the same amount of words, the same rhyming schemes. What could you do with it? Like, could you, you know, I love it when you hear someone flow and then I get to a line and you hear a rhyme. You're like, okay, I'm pretty sure I know roughly where you're going to go next. And they take it somewhere else. Like, and that's the skill for me. That's why I love the kind of, you know, I love the conscious area of hip hop. I love Common. I love Talib Kweli. I love the guys that just slave over their lyricism. And poets, like whatever you want to call it, spoken word artists, slam poets. I mean, you got nothing to hide behind but your lyricism. So you've got to bring it every time. I don't want to say it, honestly, I don't want to say a rhyme that when I say the kind of the launch line, I don't want you to have already guessed what I'm saying next. I really don't. I really want to come with a second line that you're like whether it's the words or the meaning, just that's what really intrigues me.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know you've already spoke about your dad's musical collection being a big influence, but he's kind of the one who got you started in production as well, right? With your music room.
Yeah. He bought like a MIDI sampler, like old school, like MIDI sampler and a 4-track, and they had that. He's like demo beats on them, like you know. And I would just like, just play around with it all day and rap over it. And I remember I went through this like super Tupac period, and I would just like rap Tupac over these like naff little beats, and then it's all down to my dad. Then he bought me like Sonar Cakewalk. There will be some listeners listening to this be like, Sonar, you know, like before you know, the days of Logic, obviously, and taught me the guitar and bought me a MIDI keyboard. I've got I call it the triple threat. I've got ADHD, dyslexia, and dyspraxia, and so school was a nightmare for me. And basically, I would just come back home from school and make music constantly. Yeah.
Wow. So it really has been like a big part of how you process thoughts, emotions, and your life. At what point did you think, this is what I want to do with my life? This isn't, you know, an outlet for frustration. It's not a sideline hobby. This is what I want to do. Was there a specific moment that happened?
Honestly, no. Like, there has never been a plan B. Like, I have had no other option in my mind. Like, I've never thought about doing anything else than this ever. Like, I've never had, I mean, you know, I've had loads of other sideline dreams, some of which I'm doing now, but there's never been one where this was like the thing on the side. It's always been this.
Have you ever had doubt about it? Like when it's not working, or just any kind of doubt that you're not doing there could be something else that you should be doing, anything? Like I battle doubt.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think I have to adapt and pivot my expectations of what this is, you know, like I thought I was gonna be whatever, I don't know, making more money, playing bigger stages, you know, and what's happened over time is I've begun to receive a much more measured, healthy, realistic definition of what it means to do this, to be an artist. But the doubt has never been about whether I do or not. There's been a pivoting on what it looks like. I said to my wife not long ago, I was like, you know, I'm going I'm going to be 70s, like gray beard doing this, you know, like what it'll look different. Like maybe I'll be reading from a poetry book then, but I'm going to be doing this. And
Cool.
she was like, yeah, like in one way or another, this is who what I do. Yeah.
That's really, really cool. That's really interesting about pivoting. Like it's just about adapting to just life and actually being able to live a healthy life whilst doing the thing you love and not holding on to a certain expectation, because that's when it becomes unhealthy and you're trying to just force the door open. But actually, everything is actually really, that's really interesting and really healthy. Also, I wanted to ask you, you said you have ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia. How's that impacted your art? Has it or not? Or did you find that your art, that's where you found yourself blooming that, even with those challenges? Or
yeah, it's really interesting. I I realized basically in recent years, I've realized that people don't remember words. Like I don't write my words down. I write them all in my head. And I literally only in recent years have become, because I get asked about it all the time. I heard that you don't write your words down. And I'm like, no, do you? Yeah. Oh, okay. Like, you know what I mean? Like I can't remember words if I write them down. I can't read my writing if I write it down. I hate typing. Like my fingers literally freeze. Like but I can just go all day in my head. And so I've realized that's a part of the like disability or whatever, you know what I mean? I can't do that, but I can do that. This muscle doesn't work well, but that muscle does. And, you know, I've got attention, you know, ADHD, I'm an Enneagram 7. And I think the more I learn about a 7, the more I'm like, I'm a 7. Like I have monkey brain. Like I have a million ideas and I'm moving constantly. I've got, you know what I mean? And so like you just said, I'm learning what the healthiest version of me looks like, integrated, but with that capacity. Loretta is my manager, so she knows I struggle not to be working on a project, to be coming up with a new idea. You know, I'm constantly thinking about what I could do next. And at the same time, wondering how healthy that is. And at times I'm right now, you know, shout out to your husband, Kenny Bianca, you know, like I'm on a journey now of like, okay, how much of my productivity and desire to be prolific comes out of an inability to not do that stuff. And I'm on that journey as well. And I think if that's a healthy journey for an artist to be on, I don't want to create because I'm chasing something or because something's chasing me. You know, I want to create because I love it and it's fulfillment.
What would you say is your definition of success for you as an artist? And how has that changed, if it has, with that pivoting?
Yeah, I don't really have a straight answer to that. I feel like it's evolving. My definition, I guess the phrase I'm looking at now is fulfillment. So my definition of success is fulfillment, is being fulfilled. And right now that looks like creating honest work, like just creating honest work that feels authentic to who I am and work that serves society. You know, like that's where I'm at right now. That feels good. That feels like successful.
Yeah. How do you, just talking about kind of creativity there, how do you go about commenting on culture and things that are happening? Are there places that you feel like you don't want to go with your art, or do you feel like it's part of your mission to talk about whatever means something to you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't want to use words that I haven't paid for, so I don't want to talk about things that I haven't got the authority to speak on. Now that doesn't mean that there's not things I can't speak out about, but I don't want to appear as an authority on something that I haven't paid, you know, to speak about. Therefore, the opposite's true. You know, I look at what I paid for, what I've been through, what is my experience, and that I'm going to speak about, you know, and that I have this sort of image in my mind often with like, with conversation and speaking in the parts of culture, like, can I jump in, but at the shallow end, right? And I'm in, and I want to challenge this, I want to throw this out there. But then if you ask me a question that really requires me to go a few feet deeper, I can't, you know? I don't think society needs that. Like, I don't think we need anyone else having a really strong, shallow opinion. but we do need people of depth. Like, we do need people that can say, do you know what? I can't speak to that. I can't speak to that. No, I actually don't have an opinion on that. But get me talking about that, and I'll go 40 fathoms deep. You know, I'll go right down to the bedrock of the ocean, and I'll really speak, and I could really actually bring some change to it. And so there's things in my life that I feel like, hey, I could go deep on that. I could speak about that. And then there's some things I'm like, I'm young. Like, you know, like I've got mentors and elders that I think, yeah, you talk about that. I can't talk about it just yet, you know?
That's so good. Like, I wanted to ask about how now you know that this is what you want to do, or you just kind of started creating and that's what you're going to do with your life. How did you get to a place where it's a job, like it's professional? What was your progression to that? Did you just start putting out music, or, you know, labely things? Man, how did you progress?
Yeah, that's a pretty good question. I feel like I'm a little bit abstract, and I will make it more like practical. But I have thought, I think early on, the difference between like work and a job. Like, there's a job that you get paid from, and then there's the work that you have to do, you know. And some of the thing with like music, like, this is my work, you know, like the work of Joshua Luke Smith is to be a poet and to be an artist. That's my work. That is like that's what I'm here to do in the world. And it might become my job, might not, but it's still my work, you know. And there's I've had quite a few conversations with people, especially at the end of last year. I had a number of conversations around that with people, where I was like, if you don't treat this like your work, it won't become your job, you know? Like,
right.
Is this what you're here to do? Like, are you here to work? Are you here to like labor? It's the whole idea of like, you know, the divine commissioned the human to work before anything went wrong. You know, there was a divine call for humanity to work and labor the fields, not as a punishment. It's good. It's good to work. And so I really associate with that, of like, my work is as an artist, and at times, more than ever, it looks like my job. Like, sometimes we get paid and sometimes we don't. But there is something about, Lorraine knows that more than anyone. But there is like, the more you work, like the more that you are actually like, this is what I'm here to do, the more opportunity that you create for this to become your job. Like, it is really hard. You guys have talked about this on the podcast and in what you do frequently. It's really tough. Like, it is not easy to make a living being an artist. It's not easy. And I think unless you are really consistent in what you do and diversifying in what you do, it's very difficult. So for me, it started with just releasing EPs, and I have been signed. That, to be honest, didn't make a huge deal of difference in terms of like it becoming my job. Like, it wasn't a case of, oh, cool, I got a deal, I can put my feet up and the money's coming in every month now, or the advance is like big enough that, you know, I don't have to do other stuff to earn a living. It was kind of the opposite. Like, it was kind of like, all right, so we're in debt now, you know, like, to be honest. And now, like, the money that I make from being an artist now is pretty diverse each month. Like, it looks like different things. It doesn't look like one stream of income. I think building something bigger than yourself is really important. Like, building, whether it's like a brand or a label or whatever it is, building something is bigger than just you, because that means you can diversify your product without watering down your essence. So you can like, you can produce different things without it being like, what's Josh doing now? You know what I mean? So I've got Orphan No More as an independent label. I mean, it's really a creative community, and there's a whole lot of my artistic expression that goes through that. But it's not just Joshua Luke Smith. It's Orphan No More. Then I've got The Pilgrimage, which is a platform I created to like kind of give a bit more of who I am, a bit more of like the spiritual, inquisitive sort of nature in my work. That's over there, and I've released clothing through that, and that brings in money. And do you know what I mean? So I feel like that for me has been a win. So if you go on my Instagram, you don't see all that stuff. You actually just see kind of a clearer message, but that is all happening, and that is all creating more opportunities to make money, as well as just getting, you know, so what do you do? I'm a poet. You get paid to be a poet? Well, not directly all the time, but like that's what I am. That's my work. I'm a poet.
That's cool because it's like you always, as you said before, you're going to be 70 and you're going to still be doing your work, which is like, it comes from what you feel like purpose is to you. It comes from like what comes out of your heart and stuff like that, which is your poetry, which is your writing.
Mm.
But you're always going to be doing your work, whether or not you get paid from it.
Yes.
And it'd be amazing if there was consistently you could earn a living from it. But in the
Yes.
absence of that, you're finding other ways, because you're doing this, to other jobs that
Yes.
are also creative,
Yeah.
but the pressure isn't on your work, your artistry, and your strength.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, how many stories have you heard of someone who did a different job to what they were ultimately known as? You know, like before Walt Disney was Walt Disney, he was working in something fairly mundane, as was most people. Like, unless you were like a teen star, most people did something pretty normal before they did what they got known for. But it was still them, and it was still all their genius and still all their creativity. So now, like, when I never ask people, what do you do? I never ask people that question. Like, if I'm sat on a plane, if I'm meeting someone the first time, my question is always, describe to me a day in your life. You know, because that's actually, that I can answer that question, and I can, you know, I can tell you how I earn money, but that's so boring. You know what I mean? I would rather tell you like my passion. And if I say to someone, well, what's the day in your life? Well, I get up and I have this morning rhythm. Oh, that's interesting. And then I go and do my 9 to 5. What's that? Oh, I work at Tesco's. Oh, cool. Do you enjoy it? Yeah, kind of. Then what happens when you get back? Oh, when I get back, that's when I set up the canvas. Oh, really? Yeah, and I pull the paints out. You know what I mean? So you're talking like, oh, so you're an artist. Well, I work at Tesco's, but you're an artist. Yeah, I guess so. You know what I mean? And you've given them the opportunity to say that they're an artist rather than they stack shelves. And I think they might never become known for making their art. Who knows? They could have been as good as Van Gogh, and we just didn't ever get to find out, you know? That's why I think this sort of differentiation between job and work is kind of interesting, because it's like we all have work to do, and getting paid for it doesn't validate it, you know?
That's such an important message for the independent artist, because it's one of the things that from the start we've wanted to give artists permission to call themselves an artist, to allow themselves, you know, I just remember so clearly being, you know, when somebody asks you at a party what you do, and like, I'm not sure how to answer that, because especially because many independent artists do so many different things because they're trying to do their art. So those do you pick, and often the things that I got the least money for were the things I was most passionate about, and the to serve that, I guess. But I wanted to ask you about Orphan No More, the creative community you spoke about, because I know that is, you put so much of yourself into that, you're really passionate about it, you invest in a lot of other artists through that. How have you managed to, and even with these other things you've spoken about, do you even feel a need to balance so that your art doesn't get swallowed up in all that, despite what you've explained about them, all of them being you and having the essence of you, in terms of pushing yourself as an artist? How have you been able to balance investing in others and in other things, so that, you know, it doesn't become swamped in the other things?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I think, again, still figuring it out. But I think I often think about like balance. When I hear the word balance, I don't have good balance. It's a part of like being dyspraxic. I remember when I did the test of dyspraxia, you had to balance. Like, can you stand on like one leg, you know? And when I hear balance, what I hear is it's difficult. It's difficult to balance stuff. So this is just my internal, the way that I see it. So it comes down to like priorities. If I was trying to balance it all, I would have burnt out a long time ago. I I kind of stack it, though. It's prioritized. And the way that I see it is, at the end of my life, I want to become someone who has helped people. I want to look back at my life and think I've helped people. And as much as I love being an artist, as much as everything I've said I stand by, it can be very self-indulgent, and it can be very like self-involved. And I know it because I know artists who are very self-involved, and they put out great work, but you get a coffee with them and it's like, oh, so we're just gonna talk about you, like, and we're just gonna, you know what I mean? It's like, and then I met artists that aren't self-involved, and the common denominator is one builds something bigger than them and one doesn't, you know, and one is so focused on prioritizing himself that yet they might have a much more like affluent career, but the likelihood is it takes a lot more time for them to like see anything beyond themselves. So I prioritized community in my life as a core value. I'm building community, I'm building in other people, I'm supporting others creatively and pastorally because I like what it produces in me. I like who I become as a result of it, which again sounds selfish, but it's just kind of like, that's how, you know, I'm going to use that means as a way of like my own formation and development. Now that like the tension of that is, yeah, like if I look at my 20s, I probably did prioritized my career much less than my peers did, you know, and perhaps that means now they have more success than I have. But I'm in a really special position where I can say I regret nothing, you know, and I love that. I'm in a position where I think, cool, this is where I am. I love my life, and I love seeing other people win. And I want to achieve more, but I don't want to achieve more at the expense of like becoming, I don't know, just sort of self-involved, you know?
Yeah.
So cool. And even just you saying about core value of community and helping others, but then you also said that through your music you want to help people, and I'm sure like the focus that you put on Orphan No More and the label and other people's careers actually somehow continues to build that sort of fire of being outward looking, but that has to inform your art. Like even just the whole act of doing that has to inform the art you create. So it kind of, it informs all of your core values. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So,
Yeah, definitely.
in a way that you're maybe not as conscious of. It's like,
no, that's true. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I heard I read recently, it was like a paragraph in a book. It wasn't the main point of the thing, but it really stuck to me about the difference between networking and having community. And I quite enjoy networking. Like Loretta and I kind of joke about it. Like, you know, if there's sort of a, yeah, like Bianca, but you know, a room full of people and it's kind of like, cool, you know, I don't mind. I'm like, yeah, let's connect. But networking is so transactional, and it's so based upon like, this is who I am, this is who you are, cool, let's do something, you know, it gets tiresome. And community is really humbling, and community is very, if you have a really good community, it becomes impossible to see yourself continually through the eyes of your fans. You see yourself through the eyes of your friends. And that is a really good thing for an artist. It's like, I am not Joshua Luke Smith through the eyes of the guy who just DM'd me and said, your music's changed my life. That's not actually who I am. I'm Joshua Luke Smith through the eyes of Dom, who had to call me up and say, Josh, you let me down. You know, like, that's who I am. And that is a constant like check for me. And it's difficult and it takes time, but it's definitely, it's helpful. It's helpful.
So how did you start Orphan No More, and kind of talk about if anyone else has that in them to create community, to create an independent label, what would you say if someone's sitting in front of you wanted to do that? So yeah, how did it start for you, and how would you advise anyone wanting to walk that path?
Yeah, I started like, it's funny, isn't it, how like quickly you could kind of feel old. It's like, yeah, it's weird. I'm like, whoa, I started at the same time as like online distribution was just starting, where you could, where you could just be like, I can upload this now. that had just like started. So
Yeah.
for me, I felt like, I don't know if this is like an Enneagram 7 thing. I'll talk to Kenny about it, but I think I was kind of like, I found this thing and I'm going to bring everyone with me. And it doesn't matter. You could just Google it. I found it. And I think I love the idea of releasing music and then being able to help other people release it. And it was with my best friends, and I love gathering people, and I love seeing people's dreams come true as much as I can play a part in that. And so I think if I would say don't start it if you're not in it for the long run. I think that is what I'd say, because these are real people's lives, and artists are sensitive people, and our art and our music means everything to us. So don't start this if you don't mean to continue it. You know, Orphan No More is like 8 years old now, and it's the same people. There's been no one that's like left or whatever, and that's because it's relational. And so I think like start something. I mean, look, Orphan No More isn't a label because it's not a business. You know, it is a community, and so it is a little different. I can't really speak so much just to the pragmatic business aspect, but in terms of building like a community and building a creative kind of collective, I would say really think about it. Really think about if you want to do something that requires being in the people business. You know what I mean? Like personal, relational, pastoral, that kind of stuff. And if you feel it, then yeah, then just start with one friend and say, hey, why don't we create something together? What would that look like? I
And is
mean, you
that how
guys.
you gathered people around you? Like, because you seem to be, I was talking to Loretta, like you're a gatherer, you know, you're able to do that. And that's not always the easiest for people. Loretta says that I've got that thing, but I don't see that in myself. I don't feel that I'm able to, I don't know, attract people around something, you know. And do you feel like that's just something that comes naturally to you, or is there an intentionality that you go about that with?
Well, that's a really good question. Oh, I don't know. I think it is quite subconscious. I don't think of it in a kind of corporate sense. You know what I mean? Like I want to build something like corporate. I think the moments I love are like the moments, the sort of, you know, you're like all sat around a fire, drinking whiskey, singing songs, telling stories. Like that's kind of like I just want to get there, you know, like I just want to create that moment. And there's loads of other moments we have to gather and do stuff in between, but that's where I'm going. Like I want a moment where like we're all sat around together sharing stories and just glad to have one another. And I have those sort of, I'm not answering your question practically at all, I'm sorry, but I have this sort of like, it's almost like a gut feeling of it's so good to be together, like ultimately. And music is such a beautiful way of bringing us together. But you can't have that without all the stuff in between. Like you can't have that without really, you know, journeying with people and building something with grit. Like you've got to have that as well. Loretta, I've forgotten his name. The guy who started Artisan, is it Steve?
Steve Cole.
Yeah. He said, it was something, I'm going to paraphrase it, was something on the long lines of, you know, everyone like wants to start a movement, you know, but when you think of a movement, you're thinking of something that is moving. It's like we're in the movement, you know, and most of the time it's like just pushing a boulder slowly forward, like, and it might get some momentum. That's what most of the time it's like. And then sometimes you get momentum and it's like, oh my goodness, this is rolling, this is amazing. And so it does take effort. I see what you guys do, and I say there's no way that you're not a gatherer, Bianca. And you know, I know that's true of Loretta, but I'm like, look what you've done. You know, you've gathered artists across the world, you know, to like this common place of, like, I remember when you first started and you had the T-shirt, I'm independent, right?
Yeah.
And I remember thinking about it at the time of like, people wear that T-shirt and it's not reactionary. It's not like I'm not major, you know, or like I am independent is like a manifesto of something you're choosing, not because you're not choosing the other thing. Like, it's like when people say, oh, that's so out of the box. It's like, no, I'm not the box. I'm not even thinking there isn't a box. Like, I'm not doing this in context to that. I'm just doing this. And to say I'm independent is like, this is who I am. It's not a reaction. And I remember just seeing everyone with the t-shirts on. And how many years ago was that? Is it like you were doing this like 3
About
years?
2 years ago, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, 2 3 years.
About two, yeah.
Yeah, and you're here now doing it, and it's gathered like momentum. And yeah, so all I'm saying is I've seen you do it without a doubt.
Thanks, bro. We don't see ourselves doing, so I accept it. You know,
I think part of it with Orphan No More and what I see in Bianca is, I think it's that like attracts like, and I think that sometimes it's not actually being a gatherer, it's being a magnet, whether you realise it or not. And I think you do have that, Josh. And I think one of the amazing things about the Orphan No More artists is there's somebody who's like every skill in terms of delivering some music is covered within your community. I remember when I first met you guys, and you're like, oh yeah, we've got somebody who could do that. Oh, we've got somebody who could do that. I was like, what is in the water in Bath? Because there's just all these creative people all in one place. And just talk about how that is so important for the independent artist to have, because I know you swap skills with each other, you know, you pay when you can and you value each other's work. But it's, you know, in the absence of having a major label, then having highly skilled, and it is highly skilled, these aren't people who are just, you know, amateurs at it, it means that all of the artists deliver great music videos, great production, great logos, merchandise, everything you all do is for such a high standard. I just wondered if you could speak into that and how other independent artists can perhaps create that around themselves.
Yeah. I was thinking about this again recently, chatting to an artist who was just talking about building a team. And when I think of team, I think of like the traditional sense of like a label or manager, booking agent, that kind of thing. But I feel like, yeah, the new team is like an agency. Like you're basically building, like your videographer is more important than your booking agent. You know what I mean? Like if you can, and the beauty of it, the reason Orphan No More works so well is from a very like early stage where people actually, we weren't all that good. Like we were all okay. And we all kind of just very subtly were like, I'll give you my best. I'll give you my best. And everyone said that. And then every project got better and better. And then honestly now, I look around at the team and it is the best. Like, you know what I mean? Like the people who are doing what they do outside of Orphan No More, like killing it. And what excites me for us now is saying, all right, there's someone in your work or at your church or whatever who's doing video, who's just starting. And it goes back to the job work thing. They don't do this for their job, but ask them what a day in their life is. Are they going out on Saturday mornings and just filming sunrise and then putting it up on their Instagram? Like, yeah, you know, that person, they're critical to you, you know, like they are critical to what you're going to do next. And I've had the same guy take my photos and do the video. And when I've seen indie artists that have signed or done a deal and really like beautifully kept their brand in place, it's because they've kept their team in place. It's like, no, that's the guy that does my video. Yeah, but now we have a budget of 50 grand for a video shoot. Awesome. Pay him. Yeah. Like, do you know what I mean? Like he's good enough. Pay him. I can't wait to be able to do that. And so, yeah, I think for independent artists, like your creative team is just so important. And Loretta, you kind of mentioned it, but you can't build a great team without a great culture. So you as an independent artist, you're kind of going to be sort of in some respects the team leader, you know, at some point or another. So you set the culture. And is it a great culture? Like, is it great to be a part of your team? Like, you know, is it just like, yeah, like I love working with that person because the culture, I'm valued, I'm supported, I'm thought about, I'm encouraged. Do you know what I mean? Like that is what forges a great team. The midweek calls, like, I know you're editing my video at the moment. I just wanted to check in if you're okay. You're like, you know, I know this isn't the only thing on your plate. Like, how are you doing? You know, just really keeping connected. That really excites me about this age of like making music, is a team that's just multi-discipline team in the arts.
That is so good. My gosh, yeah. That I'm just like, I've got so much in my head. Got so much in my head. That's so good. Um, I wanted to just, you mentioned being signed. I wanted to talk about that a little bit. What do I want to ask about that? I want to ask about what your experience was, how you feel about being independent now. Would you choose being signed down the line? Under what conditions?
Mm. Yeah, I like to summarize the experience. There's a lot that I'm grateful for. It afforded me a lot of opportunities that I wouldn't have had without it. I got to tour America. I got to release music and have songs produced by producers that I wouldn't have been able to afford. It definitely raised my profile. It didn't work out, and I I don't have any kind of regrets about it. I think Loretta and I talk about it often of like, we learned so much, and I know it's cliche, but it's something you guys talk about of like, it genuinely is a journey, isn't it? Like, so where I'm at now, it's difficult. Like I love being independent because I love being able to put out what I want to put out and make what I want to make. Um, I do really hope to have more budget to do what I do.
This is it.
Do you know what I mean? Like that, I really do. I would like to have a budget to. I've been working on an album, and the conversation we're having at the moment is like, I think this is a really good album. Like, I think it's the best thing I've made. I think it's better than anything else I've made, just because it's that measure of success I was talking about before. I think it's really honest, and I think it really serves people. And I would like it to do more than my previous records have. And it does take money, right? Like, if you have. Well, if you don't have money, you can do loads of things like you guys talk about. There's so much that you can do. But if you do have a 20K marketing advance, well, then you can do a lot more with it. So I can't imagine ever signing a record deal again. I can't imagine doing that. I do feel attracted to sort of deals, licensing deals, distribution deals that still put the creative control in my hands, but also, give up a percentage for a investment. But if someone came along, I don't know, if someone came along, a businesswoman, and said, "Hey, I would like to give you 50K for your next record. I have no understanding of the music industry. Could this help you?" I would say absolutely, and I think I could do more with that 50K than a lot of labels could if they offered me 50K, because I have a great team. So I don't feel like really it does. I would love an investment. Just speaking to anyone listening to this, like what I would love is investment into what I do. And if you look at like the artists of old, a lot of artists would have patrons, like people that would commit. So when I think about a record label, I honestly don't think, oh, I need a record label because they know something that we don't. Like, I think that day's long gone. And being signed only confirmed it. I don't want to say this, I don't want to appear arrogant. But I do want to say this as an encouragement to independent artists. I often find that I'm the most creative person in the room, and I think that as an independent artist, that's like your secret weapon. Like, I've got, as creators, we're consultants because we're problem solvers. We solve problems with creative solutions. And so if you put me in a room with like the CEO of a record label, I'm pretty confident that I could come up with a better strategy, just because I spend all day, every day thinking creatively. And if you don't, then I've just had a few more days than you have to think creatively. And so if you were to invest the money into me, into my team, I feel like we could do something really special with it. And there's still obviously hoops you got to jump through, spaces, marketing spaces that the record labels own, like real estate. But I don't think that is make or break anymore.
We've got about maybe 10 minutes left, and I'd love, Josh, for you to speak into about what helps you to keep consistent, because I think that's the thing. Like, some people will know that you were signed before and then that now you're not. A lot of people won't know that because you have consistently put music out. You've consistently done the other things you've talked about with Orphan No More and with Pilgrimage as well. And is that consistency work for you? I mean, I'm saying this slightly knowing the answer to the question.
I would love to know how you stay consistent, how you are so prolific. I think it's to do with who you are a little bit naturally, but like you be out here creating every day, and I need to know how that works.
Well, I think a part of it does come down to the work job idea, where I wake up every morning with work to do. You know, it's just, there isn't a day go by where there isn't work to do. And I have a to-do list of work that is as, you know, if not more important, sacred than anything else. And I have to get it done. It's really important that I get it done. It's really important that I record those podcasts and write that poem and work on that track. It's what I'm here to do. And so it's a value. And I think, you know, it comes down to, like, I don't want to make it too sort of clinical, but it does come down to like productivity and just intentionality and discipline. I'm about to have a baby. I'm going to learn. You know, I've had the luxury of having, I've had my whole 20s without a baby. So that's all I know. I'm sure it's going to change. But yeah, like, that's an encouragement I say to a lot of artists. Like, please treat this like it's important. You know what I mean? Like, because we're not going to value it like it's important unless you treat it like it is. You know, like, why do you expect that we value this if you don't value it in a way that shows us that we should? Do you know what I mean? And some people don't want to make money, and that's fine. And so your output's going to be different. And some people don't really care how much they do or don't do, so output's going to be different. For me, to be really honest, I would like to do this full time. I'd like to get paid from this. I'd rather not have to do too many jobs. And also, I do look at my life with, I've got quite a lot of work to do. And that isn't in the absence of rest at all. I love rest. Work hard, play hard, you know, but there is work to do. And that mixtape is really important. Why? It's what I'm here to do. But it's just songs and raps. Yeah. But no one else can say them. Only I can write those. I have to do it. But you've only got this many Spotify monthly listeners. I know. Isn't that amazing? Those people are going to hear it. I have to do this. They're waiting. You know what I mean? Like, it's that kind of mentality. And then if that all else fails, it's like, I get to do this. It's a gift. You know what I mean? Like,
wow.
People want to have, you know, your gift. They wish they did, but you do have it. So don't squander it. You know what I mean? Like, use it. And I'm not saying that in a like weird, judgmental, condemning way at all. I just feel like sometimes there can be a sense of, why don't people value what I do? And I just think often the answer is because I don't think you do, you know?
That is, wow. That is such an incredible answer. That spoke to me personally. Yeah, I'll be unpacking that a lot. And it made me think about a quote that I heard recently, and I'm going to do a little kind of stories thing for I'm independent for it or something, just a little chat. But I heard someone say that some things that are important aren't popular, and some things that are popular aren't important. And sometimes the great things happen where something that is important also becomes something that's popular. Do you know what I mean? I feel like what I think Brooke Fraser said it, or somebody I was watching someone's story, and I feel like that's what you're saying. Like, you value what you do as important regardless of how popular it's ever going to be.
Yes.
And it may become popular, but it's not important that it does.
Yeah.
It's important.
That's a really good way.
It's important because it's important.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's really good. That's a really good way of putting it. Like, I would love it if artists listening to this right now were just to say, what I do is so important. And then I dare you to say it to someone this week of like, I've just been thinking about this song I'm writing. Oh yeah, how's it going? It's just dawned on me how important it is that I finish it. It's so important. It's such an important thing to finish this song. Why? It just is, you know what I mean? Like, that breaks something in your mind, in your mindset.
Yeah, it does. Can I ask a practical question quickly? Oh, sorry, I'm just hogging all the space. But I was just
going to say that many artists don't feel that their art's important. In fact, they feel embarrassed, perhaps, that they're still trying to make this work. You're still writing those songs. So we should set, you know, our listeners set that challenge, because I think that would break something in a lot of people.
I feel like it's not important because they don't feel like they're good enough at it as well. I think there's that thing that's happening, and maybe as they become more skilled and more confident in their growth, that actually they might feel like it's a little bit more important. But I wanted to ask a quick question. Practically, you know, what is your setup at home like? If an artist is like, I want to be cracking on, what do I need to just, you know, to make my music on a basic level and just to keep my productivity high? What are the basic things that you have at home that help you to do that?
Super simple. I mean, the most expensive thing that I've got is a MacBook. And then I've got a £50 audio interface, and I've got a £70 MIDI keyboard. I'm using more of an expensive mic right now, but I've got another £20 mic. So, you know, without the MacBook, all in all, I don't know, £150, something like that. Just enough to plug my mic in and have a keyboard. You know, you can, this might sound super weird, but you can just download beats and guitar parts from YouTube that are royalty free and just start writing stuff. You can just do that. You're allowed to do that. It's what loads of people do just to start fleshing things out and getting some ideas going. You know what I mean? Like, you can just start doing that. And actually, to the point of what you were saying then of like, I don't feel good enough, just change it to, it's so important that I get better. It's so important that I take time to work on my craft. It's so important. So I'm taking time every day to do, and it really is. Like, I wouldn't be able to do what I do if, like, when I wrote poems, they were basic and they, you know what I mean? Like, I know that I get opportunities because I'm good at what I do, you know? And so that's why it's important that I don't stay static and I just keep working on it. It's really important that I keep growing and progressing.
So good.
Gems.
So many. Goodness me. Like,
Oh,
I'm going to be processing after this. Thank you so much.
You ask good questions. Good questions.
Thanks so much.
So good.
And in terms of what you've got out now and where to direct people to, just give us all the relevant links and things to finish.
Yeah, I mean, mainly just the Instagram. Instagram's like the new website, isn't it? Just Joshua Luke Smith on Instagram. You can kind of
TikTok though. Heard TikTok was the thing.
Oh man, I just, have you done it yet?
No, I've got an account because I like to have my name in it, but that's as far as I
yeah. Well, for now, just Joshua Luke Smith. Instagram, TikTok might be coming. Yeah, come connect with me on that. Send me a DM. Let's chat.